Hello, everybody. Welcome to the world's greatest Bronze Age comic book podcast, Flea Market Fantasy. I'm your co-host, Michael, and as always, I'm joined by
Michael Dell of the LCS Hockey Radio Show.
That's right, and this week it is my pick. This is a comic I didn't think we'd ever done before, but we've reviewed it 3 times. This is The Defenders.
Well, we've only done The Defenders once, but this is like the 3rd time. You chose this one because of the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like the 3rd time we've talked about the Guardians.
Yes,
I think.
But just to be clear, we reviewed Defenders number 18 on Flea Market Fantasy 31. But
Yes.
Mike Dell, in the pre-podcast days on the text version of Flea Market Fantasy,
Yes.
you reviewed Defenders 35. And that
right.
was by Steve Gerber. So
Yes, that was the one with like the Ruby Tuesday and
right.
the guy with he was like a goat with a unicorn horn or something. I don't know. It was crazy. But yeah, the issue we're doing today is Defenders 26.
That's right.
26. 1975. So at least when you get forgetful, Michael, and you pick repeat books, I don't have to do any research.
There
You've
you
already
go.
talked about all these characters. And the creators here are Steve Gerber, who we've already talked about many times, and Sal Buscema, who we've talked about many times. So yeah, look at that.
What about Vince Colletta? We talked about him?
I'm sure we mentioned him once or twice, but yeah, I didn't do any research on Vince Colletta,
great.
the anchor.
It's going to be a short one. All right.
Yeah, I think it will be. But
We'll see. We'll see.
real quick about, since we'll just talk about Gerber and Buscema at the top here. Gerber wrote issues 20 to 29 and 31 to 41. Mm-hmm. And then he did the annual number 1, and that's from 75 to 76. And Sal Buscema, he did the first 29 issues. Then he did 31 to 41, 62 to 64, 119, 127, 148, annual number 1 from 1975 to 1982. So Sal Buscema was all over the Defenders.
Wow.
For a 7-year span. I don't know if it's very cool, but yeah, it's something.
I love Sal Buscema, our pal Sal.
He has to be the guy we've done the most issues about, right? I mean, he's 6 or 7 Sal Buscemas, I would think.
Well, put it this way. I'm going to do a chart in my spare time, and I'll be able to catalog how many Sal Buscema comics we've done, okay?
Maybe for the 100th episode.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, those are the people we're dealing with here. So now you just chose this book because the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, there's 2 reasons. Because I don't know if you guys recall, but a few months back, I do recall you saying that you were looking forward to reading Steve Gerber Defenders, and I guess even you didn't remember you'd already reviewed it in the text form. So
I suppose
if you go back through the archives, you might find that quote. So I was like, hey, I'm going to do Mike Dell a favor, and I'm going to pick it. And then when I found out that the Guardians made a couple guest appearances, I thought this is the perfect storm. So that's why I picked it.
So you're doing me a favor. Thank you, Michael.
There you go.
What a guy. What a guy.
Stand up.
All right. So I guess we can just get it right into it. Let's look at this cover.
Sure. Now that I've closed it. Okay.
Oh.
So let's... it was accidental. Anyway, here we go. Defenders number 26. Guest starring the Guardians of the Galaxy. Up on the top left, we don't have a typical corner box. We've got 3 circular circles.
3 circular circles.
Yeah,
that's exactly
not
right.
the squared circles, like a wrestling ring. And then we've got the Defenders' heads inside. We've got the Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Nighthawk.
Yeah.
And then the cover, which is awesome, is floating
See, I don't
heads.
like this cover. I don't like this cover.
We'll talk about... Well, there's certain things I like. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we got the floating heads of the Hulk, Doctor Strange, Valkyrie. Is it pronounced Valkyrie?
Yes.
Okay. And Nighthawk, which are awesome. Then at the bottom, we have the Guardians of the Galaxy being attacked by these spaceships. Now, the Guardians, we have Vance Astro, Yondu, and Charlie 27 running kind of towards the camera, and they look cool. I think the part you don't like is Martinex.
You're correct.
With his ass in her face, and an
Yes.
anatomically incorrect ass in her face. It just doesn't look like it's correctly drawn. I'm going to guess that's what you don't like, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't look like Martinex either. He looks bulky, like the Thing, almost.
Right.
And I just don't like the layout. Like, we have Vance Astro basically running headfirst into his crotch. It's just very weird. And the other big problem I have with it is this does not happen in the book at all. Like,
that's a good
there
point.
is nothing about this. I think this happens next issue, I think.
Well,
maybe.
I think, no, isn't this alluded to in the flashback?
Oh, I guess. Yeah, now that you mention it, they kind of like talk about a war, I guess, on their planet. But it's not like it's a flashback reference.
Right.
It's not
right.
something that's happening in this issue.
Yes.
And do you know who drew this cover?
No, but the inks look like John Romita Sr., but I don't know who drew it. Do you know?
Gil Kane.
Really? There you go. Gil Kane.
Yeah. And I think John Romita did ink it. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. So.
Yep. And we should point out that these spaceships flying towards them they kind of look like a combination of Luke Skywalker's land speeder and like the Starship Enterprise a little bit. Kind of.
Suppose.
They look like a car, but they have like what are those called that the Enterprise has? The not nodules. What's the word I'm looking for?
I have no idea.
Whatever. Those two round things that stick out of the back of the Enterprise.
Yeah, that stick up and back
yeah.
out. Yeah.
So anyway.
Also, there's a blurb down at the bottom. Across the Gulf of Centuries, Earth battles for its life. Savage time.
That's right.
And Doc Savage time.
So yeah, for those, I know we're not going to talk about the Guardians much, but this is not the team from the movie. This is the original team who traveled here from the year 3000, and they're hanging out with the Defenders right now.
From the year 3000. I wonder if they had crowbars with flashlights.
Yeah.
We'll get into Camelot 3000 again later, because there's a nice comparison can be made between Steve Gerber's look into the future and what those kids from Camelot did.
Mike W. Barr. Yep. Okay. Well, we'll see.
Yeah. Savage time.
So we flip this sucker open, and it's Stan Lee presents the Dynamic Defenders. Steve Gerber, Sal Buscema, Vince Colletta, Kay Mantlo, must be related to Bill Mantlo, letterer, I. Vartanoff, never heard of this person, colorist, and Len Wein, the editor. And the title's Savage Time. And we're kind of jumping into the middle of the story, but basically, to make a long story short, Valkyrie is a, what's it called?
Asgardian?
Asgardian, like, warrior, but in the body of this woman named Barbara, who was married to this guy who she's talking to right now, Jack Norris. And she does not have any memories of Barbara because she has the soul of Valkyrie. So this guy is like, hey, you're my wife, and she's like, I have no memory of that. Sorry. So they're basically sitting on top of this like mountain ledge or like whatever, this ledge, or looking over the city and kind of chatting it up. And he's trying to convince her, and she doesn't believe him. So then he does what anyone would do, and he sexually assaults her. No, but he kisses her.
He grabs her and kisses her. Yeah,
grabs her and kisses her, which is a little more socially acceptable at the time, right? To just grab
it's his wife. And he's like, hey, wife, remember this? And he's hoping he'll snap her out of it. But yeah, she says nothing. I feel nothing.
She says, oomph. And then she says, no, nothing. And I advise you never to force yourself upon me again if you value your life. Yeah. So that's the end of that.
Well, I like how Sal's drawing her, though. She looks great here. Valkyrie. The thing I want to point out, though, it's kind of like, again, in Camelot 3000, where the little kid didn't believe King Arthur came back to life. He's like, hey. Right. Here, this guy seems to refuse to believe that his wife is Valkyrie, even though there's a winged horse sitting right beside her.
Good point.
And she's also like really strong all of a sudden. But he's like, I refuse to believe that you're Valkyrie. You're my wife's going crazy. I'm riding a winged horse. What? Where do you think I got this?
Exactly. You know? I'd believe her. Right.
Yeah. It's a winged horse. Besides, she's wearing that sexy metal bra thing she's got on, and she's got swords, and come on. But yeah, so she's about to like say, hey, forget it, I'm out of here. And then there's an earthquake, Michael.
That's right. There's an earthquake. There's actually a freaking earthquake, as she calls it.
Yeah, that's right.
And so then he's like, but this can't be happening. It's my feet slipping, can't balance. And then he falls. I can't. Vibration is too strong. I'm falling. So he's telling us exactly what's going on as it's happening. Yep. So she jumps on her horse, her winged horse, which is technically...
Aragorn, I think his name is. Aragorn.
Okay, Aragorn. And swoops down underneath him, catches him with one hand, and then lifts him up. And we have an interesting little description here in the caption. It says, as she hauls Jack astride, the winged steed, Norris cannot help but wonder which is more astounding, the quake or his wife's prodigious strength, preferring not to consider the latter, perhaps for reasons of self-esteem. And then he says, "This is insanity. There are no earthquake faults in New Jersey." And then we cut. That's the end of the scene. Cool.
Yeah.
So then we cut over to Nighthawk, who's over at, I guess this is Defender's headquarters, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
Defenders. Do the Defenders have a headquarters? They're
yeah. I'm not sure.
I was going to say they're B-level Avengers. They're like C-level Avengers, right? I mean,
yeah, they might just be in Nighthawk's like mansion or something. I don't know.
Maybe
Nighthawk's like the Batman of the Marvel universe. But anyway, so they're hanging out with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and Hulk's, and they're talking about how they come from 3,000 years in the future and blah blah blah. And then Hulk's like, Hulk doesn't get it. How can men be from tomorrow when it's still tonight? And yeah. So that's the Hulk.
I don't like when Hulk talks.
No, I figured out I don't like 70s Hulk at all.
Yeah, I like when he just grunts or say Hulk smash, puny human, that kind of thing. But actual sentences and thoughts, not a fan of. No. Yeah.
And that's the thing is I love Superman, but I do not really like what's his name? Bizarro. When Bizarro talks backward, like that character belongs like in the 50s. It doesn't work anymore. But anyway.
We should mention the Guardians here are Charlie 27, but he doesn't have his little his mask on, so he's
I think this is his second outfit, or first.
Didn't he used to have like a mask?
Yeah, I think the mask was in his second outfit or his first, and this is like a different outfit.
Because it looks like the exact same outfit without the mask.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
I have no idea. I trust you. You love your Guardians.
Yeah.
And then Yondu's here. The guy like kind of like the Native American fella with the bow and arrow. And then Vance Astro, the man from Earth who was sent into the future. And we'll get into his backstory because I like his backstory. It's pretty great.
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
So, because they flash back to it here in a minute. So they're trying to figure out what's going on, and old Nighthawk is saying, "Hey, I think because these guys came back from the future, they're screwing up our world. They're causing all these problems."
Right, and I should point out that I did read the Defenders Annual #1 to prepare for this issue, and that is the issue where you find out, because what happens is you meet this kid, and the whole story goes on, and they're talking, and at the very, very last panel, someone says, "So what's your name?" And the kid's like, Vance Astro, or Astrovic, actually.
Astrovic,
yeah. So we'll talk about his backstory later, but somehow the kid Vance Astro exists now, and this Vance Astro is from 3,000 years in the future, which we'll talk about later. But so they're trying to basically establish that maybe because he's existing, two Vance Astros are existing at the same time, that's causing all these problems, right? Earthquakes and stuff.
Yeah.
So basically, they're like looking at a computer screen, and I think in the previous story, one of these spaceships has crashed on Earth.
It's their spaceship.
Oh, it's their spaceship. Oh, it's the Captain America. Right.
Yeah.
So the news is reporting on the Captain America. The kind of looks like the Enterprise, but turns sideways. And basically, as like the army and like all these news reporters are talking about it, all of a sudden the door opens, and we know that because one of the army guys is like, "General, he's coming out. The spaceman's coming out. Look at him. He's a walking diamond, and he's got a kid with him." And then, sure enough, we cut to a shot of a walking diamond with a kid with him.
Martinex. Martinex. Yeah.
And so then the kid's like, "Don't shoot. He's not an enemy, really." And then watching on the TV, we cut to Vance Astro, and he's like, "Dr. Strange, the boy with Martinex. It's me. I don't understand. Why can't I? Strange, do something." So then Dr. Strange casts a spell, and he flies the Defenders there, like basically instantly, traversing hundreds of miles in scant seconds, then arching downward, striking the starship and Martinex and young Vance Astrovic, and enveloping all in a burst of clear white light. So now they've traveled across the country, and now they're with everyone else.
Yeah, I don't know where the Defenders are headquartered. Are they, I guess, in New Jersey as well?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems weird that they hang out in New Jersey, but all right, whatever.
Yeah. So anyway, so now they're chatting with Martinex and the kid, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. So Martinex is like, he's talking about the spaceship. He's like, "I can have her space-worthy in a few hours, but she's not designed for intra-atmospheric flight. We can't launch her without..." And Doctor Strange is like, "Leave that to me." So he's going to figure out a way to make this thing fly, right? Or to fly like through space. Oh, no, through the atmosphere. Yeah, intra-atmospheric, right? Okay.
Yeah, just to get it out into space.
Right. Yeah,
it's his job to figure that out.
Right. So then the kid's like, "Cripes, are all of you spacemen? Are you from the same planet?" And Vance Astro's like, "If you trace the genealogy back far enough." And then Doctor Strange is like, "You seem oddly amused, Nighthawk. What is it?" "I was just thinking all the good advice I could give myself if I met a kid named Kyle Richmond." What advice would you give yourself, Mike Dell, if you talked to yourself as a kid?
Dames is trouble.
There you go.
That's what I would say.
I'd probably say invest in Bitcoin. Anyway. I'd go back like a year. Anyway. Okay, so... Yeah, so they're basically talking. Oh, yeah, so this is where we get a 26-page flashback.
Yes. Yeah, I was very confused by why you picked this issue, just because we've done the Defenders, and I was like, oh, maybe something exciting happens. No, nothing happens in this entire issue.
No, nothing happens. Absolutely nothing.
It's just them talking for 26 issues.
It's a gamble. It's always a gamble, yeah. So basically, this is where Vance Astro explains everything that happened in the ensuing 3,000 years to Earth, right? So he talks
But he doesn't come out and say it's Earth because he doesn't want to scare the little kid himself.
He talks about, right. He keeps saying...
some other planet.
Yeah,
he always catches himself. Yeah.
Right.
But Mike, now consider Camelot 3000 and what they did in looking at the future. And now listen to what Steve Gerber does.
Okay.
Holy hell.
So he says... he's talking about wildflowers. We haven't had any wildflowers there. We used to, about 1,000 years ago, but they weren't considered essential after the ozone catastrophe. And he goes on to talk about how we decided we valued dry armpits and the $3 billion aerosol industry over our flowers, our food, and ultimately our health. Oh, the scientists warned us. They said the gas in those cans would break down the ozone layer, the world's protection from the sun's ultraviolet rays, but we didn't believe it. Not until the first skin cancer epidemic of 1982. Not until a walk in the sun became so deadly that even to cross the street we needed protective clothing over every square inch of our bodies.
Yeah, they show like a police officer on the corner in a rubber suit, like a scuba diving suit. And everybody walking around in scuba suits. But how about that, Michael? 1975 he's writing this.
Right. He's ahead of the curve there, right?
And he caught it. Get 20 years ahead of the curve. How about that? Yep. Now, in fairness, he did not envision curb wars with flashlights, but he did predict the greenhouse effect in the ozone layer.
I'm sure that anyone in the know would have known, but I had a hard time convincing my parents of this, like in 1997, let alone 75 or whatever this was. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. So then he's like, the sunsuits weren't a solution, and basically the skin cancer is apparently so bad, it's eating people away bit by bit, so they have to start replacing their like appendages with bionics. And so they show like a woman in bed, and she's got like a robot arm, and then he's like, mechanical replacements for human limbs, and we were stupid enough to be proud of that great advance, in quotes. Yeah. And then 1988, they started their space program. They show a rocket going into space.
Well, it ended with a bang. The space program ended. Yeah,
yes, we sent a man on 1,000... Oh, right. So this is the key point. We sent a man on a 1,000-year journey to the stars, and it took the last of our funding. So that plot point will come back later, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like...
Well, do you want to talk about it now? Like, it's Vance Astro. That's who they sent.
Crap. Spoiler, yeah, it's Vance Astro.
Because I have a question, though. Why did they send him 1,000 years in the future? I can't remember. Like, what was his mission?
No, it wasn't. They didn't send him to the future. They sent him into space. It's like, okay, you're going to fly to whatever, Alpha Centauri, but it's going to take you 1,000 years to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I meant. But why did they do that?
I don't know. Why did they send people to the moon, like
But they expected one man... But it wouldn't take 1,000 years to get to the moon, so you can actually learn from it. But 1,000 years, everyone's going to be dead by the time he gets there. So... Did they think he would, and why would you send one man if you're thinking you're going to repopulate the world or whatever? You know what I mean? So
that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know.
I forget. I know. Again, this is like we said. I've done many Guardians issues before because I did a Guardians issue for the written version of Flea Market Fantasy. But I can't remember why they sent him. But anyway,
they might not. Maybe they never explained it, right? Maybe they just took it for granted.
I think they did have they sent him 1,000 years like on this mission that would take 1,000 years, and then by the time he gets there, there are people already there.
And we find that out in this issue too.
Yeah, and that's
They mention
great.
that. Oh, that is great. Yes.
So it's like his whole mission was just a complete waste of time.
Right. Whoever thought of that is a genius. I don't know if it was Steve Gerber or who, but what a great idea. Wow.
Yeah. But anyway, all right. So he's still telling the kid about what happens, and he starts telling him about like the big Bionic Wars, the Cyborg Wars, and it looks like Deathlock is fighting, but it's
yeah,
not
you're
Deathlock.
right. It does. Yeah. Yeah, the Bionic Wars of the 1990s. So maybe this is supposed to be the same kind of time.
It's
timeline.
not like
it's not.
It's
okay.
not Deathlock, because I guess in the trivia note for this issue it says some people thought this meant Deathlock originated on this world, but then they put that to rest in the Marvel Universe Handbook that we love, Michael.
Oh yes, we should review one of those one day.
Where they said what planet Deathlock, what timeline he comes from, or whatever, and it's not this one. So
okay, all right.
Just a coincidence that they look like Deathlock, I guess.
So then they talk about so they talk about the Bionic Wars. And then they're like, they would have gone on forever if not for another disaster. A nuclear power plant exploded, rendering the western half of an area the size of your Canada uninhabitable. Yeah.
Look out, Mike! Canada gets blown up by a nuclear power plant.
We're the black guy of science fiction. We're always the first to go.
America's hat.
Yep.
But it's all right, Michael. This is supposed to. I guess this all happened by like 2000. So you're in the clear. You're like 21 years probably ahead of this.
So we've averted it. So we did something to avert this future. Yeah. So then humanity came to its senses, and in 1995 saw the signing of the Treaty of Peking and the formation of the first Confederation of Nations. I guess wasn't there already a United Nations? But anyway.
Yes, but this is different. This is the United Confederation of Nations.
Okay.
This is way better.
Yeah. So then everyone worked together, and like now it says here they could smile and laugh again. Humankind united. It was the realization of a dream, but the dream was cruelly obliterated in the year 2001 when we were invaded by by our neighboring planet. I mean, So they show these like spider-like robots with like UFOs with long legs, like kind of like War of the Worlds a little bit, shooting everything up, right?
Pretty much exactly like War of the Worlds.
Yeah, exactly.
Looks a lot like them. Yeah.
And then we cut over to, there are no reliable histories on the period of occupation. Legend has it that a band of freemen led by a charismatic figure known as Killraven began the revolt against the invaders. And at the bottom it says, all we can say for certain is that by 2075 the aliens had abandoned our world. We may never know exactly. Oh no, that's not a note. That's actually part of the narration. But the thing is and I don't know if you researched this, but Killraven is obviously a real character. Yes. Like this is Marvel, continuity here.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
And Mike, I'd like to think if Canada ever were blown up and became a dystopian society, that you would lead a band of free men across Canada.
And look exactly like Killraven, yeah. That's why I'm working on my hair right now. I don't know if you know my hair, it's almost down to my chin now, eh?
Holy hell.
Yep.
Like a hippie.
Yep. Or like Killraven, right? So basically for 500 years there's this barbaric period. And there was city-states ruled by techno-barons who eventually went to war with each other over the moon. And then this is other Marvel history, but they executed a tyrant named Qual. And then that ended the reign of the techno-barons. And then communications were restored between the city-states. A second world federation was established. We were on our way up once again, and this time we would reach for the stars. So then, this is my favorite part about Guardians history. I love this. So then they talk about exploring the solar system. So they're like, genetic engineering developed under the Technobarons allowed us to breed subspecies of humans to colonize our solar system. And they show people on Mars, and like the sun is like a giant thing in the sky, and it's all really
this
hot.
Is Mercury.
Mercury. Mercury. And so all the aliens on Mercury all have like basically, I think that's supposed to be fire hair, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because Mike, remember Nikki of the Guardians?
Right. That's right.
She comes in a year later, but this is like this is the same like look that she has. So they kept the continuity going.
And they show like a city under a dome, and they show these aliens like mining stuff in a cave and bringing it out. It's really cool. And then they show, so that was the nearest planet to the sun. Now, and then they say to the world farthest, which is obviously Pluto at this point. There, only the silicon men of Martinex's species could survive. And they show these silicon men like on an icy planet, and like they have like a satellite, but it's covered in ice, and they're outside putting up like an antenna, and it's covered in ice. It's awesome. I love it.
There's a lady there, Michael, too.
Female lady. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This is so cool. I love this stuff. And then in time, we even overcame the constraints of gravity to study the gas giants of our solar system. We built city spheres that hung in those planets' poisonous methane-laden atmospheres. And they show like this, kind of like a bowling ball with a city inside of it, right? Like a clear bowling ball. It's cool. And then we populated those spheres with the men and women of Charlie's race, whose mass and density were adapted to thrive under those conditions. And we see these like Charlies walking around. They're all like short and squat. Very cool. Very cool.
Even the ladies, short and squat.
Yep. And then by the mid 2900s, they'd undertaken construction of our first starship fleet. By 2980, they'd reached the nearest star system and established our first friendly contact with an alien race. Now, this is where it gets really cool. Then it says, the year 3000 was celebrated with the joining of all the colonies, blah, blah, blah. And speaking of late, remember that guy they sent into space back in 1988? Well, in 3006, he landed. A 1,000-year-old prisoner in a suit of copper foil, a suit he couldn't discard because contact with the air would reduce him to dust. His interstellar voyage had been made a farce. Man was already there to greet him. Poor slob. He was given a hero's welcome, but somehow he just couldn't make himself care. He's, of course, talking about himself.
Yeah, it's great. That's awesome.
I love it, yeah.
We should mention that when they have the first contact with the alien race, that alien race is Yondu's people.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So then everything's good until the year 3007, in which they get invaded by an alien race called the Badoon. And that starts another war, right?
Yep. And I guess that's what's depicted on the cover, the Badoon ravaging the cities.
And then they show like all these humans kind of like in cages being guarded by the Badoon. Then we see the Guardians outside of like a city, kind of like looking at it engulfed in flames. And they decide, he's like, but we vow to take our world back. And over 8 years, we had a few triumphs, like seizing the last remaining ship of the Starfleet to use as a traveling base. Again, the Captain America that kind of looks like the Starship Enterprise. Then we see them fighting the Badoon with help from the Thing, which apparently took place in Marvel 2-in-1 number 5. Oh, and Captain America, which took place.
And who's the blonde in the bottom right?
Oh, that's probably like Sharon Carter, I think. Or somebody
that would be my guess as well.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But very cool. And then we cut back, and now he's wrapping up his story, and the boy's crying. And he's like, why are you crying? He's like, I'm sorry, it's just all that stuff. It could happen here too, couldn't it? Well, it could, Vance. Yes, but it doesn't have to. So basically, obviously the boy doesn't realize he's actually talking about Earth, and Vance is saying that, you can still change the future, blah, blah, blah. So then they're talking about how, Doctor Strange is explaining how time is paradoxical, and Earth need not suffer the fate of that other world. And then the kid is like, can you send me home now, mister? My folks will be worried about me. So the Doctor Strange zaps him home, and he's like, have no fear, Major. The boy will remember nothing of what you told him. My spell saw to that. So the last 20 pages were just wasted, I guess.
Well... Not for us.
Not for us, but for the boy,
kid,
yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then Vance is like, I should have known. Thanks, Strange. So then just at that moment, Valkyrie and her husband fly down and land. And they basically bring her up to speed. And they're like, okay, well, ready to go. We're going to jump on the ship. And then what's his name? Jack Norris is like, Barbara, hold it. Where do you think you're going? That crazy thing won't fly. Look at them. Those people are all insane. You can't. I can and shall if I so choose. And I shan't ask you nicely again to keep your hands off of me. Now will you kindly remove yourself from my life? I've heard that so many times from girls when they're breaking up with me. But anyway, we won't get into that.
So where do you think her little winged horse goes when she's off into space?
It's a good question.
Because the Jack guy ain't taking care of him. He's a creep.
Yeah, that's a good point. They don't really show what happens to it, eh?
Nope.
So anyway, now they're on the ship, And they're like, "Are you coming with us, Doctor? You and your friends? We've named ourselves Earth's Defenders, Yondu. If we would be true to that mission, we could not do otherwise." So yeah, they're going with them. So then they show this the Captain America ship. It's kind of like all busted up on one side, but it flies anyway. So Vance Astro's like, "Aren't you forgetting something, Doctor Strange? Like the time barrier? Without both engines, we're still stuck in your era. That too has been dealt with, Major." Again, observe the screen. So it shows that they're now in the year 3007 or whatever, and we see the Badoon, we see this futuristic city. So they've made their way to 3007. Then Doctor Strange says, "And look well, all of you, at the sight of an Earth enslaved. Look very well, for before we have gone, that sight shall be no more." So yeah, they're going to kick some ass, right? And take some names. The end.
Yeah. But read the next issue, Michael.
It says, "Next, the might of the Defenders turned against the savage empire of the Badoon, but not before you meet the mysterious being known only as the Starhawk." Awesome.
That's the first reference to Starhawk in print ever.
Whoa.
So, maybe it would have been better if we picked the next issue because it would have been the first Starhawk, but
maybe.
Pick this one. So Doctor Strange can just teleport them 3,000 years or 2,000 years into the future, or how many ever 1,000 years into the future?
I guess so.
At a whim, he can just do that.
Apparently.
And it's so weird just seeing Hulk standing around in the background.
Yeah. Well, there's also an issue of Defenders where the Hulk makes coffee, so thank Christ we didn't read that one. But anyway.
Yeah, this is just not how the Hulk should be used.
I agree.
It's so bizarre. I don't like any of it. But what can you do? All right, so there it is. That's it. The Defenders. Issue 26. A whole lot of talking. And then...
not a lot of action.
No. Not at all.
Yeah. So I love the story. I love the story that Vance Astro tells because it's awesome. But the actual issue, not much happens, but I still really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's. I think Sal's art here is really strong. This is pretty good Sal Buscema art.
Yeah.
He especially draws Valkyrie. Draws her great. The writing, Gerber looking into the future, predicting some stuff. So that was
He's
impressive.
Solid. He's rock solid, I tell you.
But yeah, if you're looking for action, this isn't the book for you. If
no,
I don't know.
Not much happens, eh?
No. So I don't know. I can't give it more than a 5.
Ooh.
It's just middle of the road. It's just there's nothing really memorable.
Well, the thing is that I still enjoy reading it more than an average Bronze Age comic from the 70s. So I'll give it at least, I'd say 6.5.
6.5.
Yeah.
Yes, that's about it.
Okay, shortest episode ever.
Not much to say.
Yeah.
Any other Defenders notes?
Well, I can only say I've been gearing up for this one for a long time. You could argue I picked the wrong issue, but
yeah, I think so.
It's funny because I think I read this a few years ago and I completely forgot what happened in it. So yeah, I guess I should have picked the next one, but oh well.
For those who don't recall, the Defenders ran from 1972 to 1986. 152 issues. 152 issues. So that's something.
Yep. And I think it was one of the ones canceled to make way for the new universe, right?
Yes, that one sounds about right. It's just such a weird team. Doctor Strange, the Hulk. The original team was Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Namor, right? And then Silver Surfer joined, issue 2 or 3. It's just such a bizarre team.
Right.
No one really goes together at all. No?
Yeah, well, that's why they call themselves the non-team, right?
I guess. But yeah, I'm looking through. I'm flipping through some of the cover to see who else joins up eventually. Hellcat joins at some point, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So something.
Hellcat. Who else? Beast, Angel, Iceman, right?
They were in the Champions.
I think they joined the new. They're part of the new Defenders eventually.
Yeah, I think I do recall seeing Angel.
Yeah. For sure. I'm looking it up right now.
There it is. The Defenders.
Yeah.
The Avengers are busy. Maybe call the Defenders.
Nothing like the Netflix TV show.
But I think that's a better team because they all at least have something it makes sense that they're together. Yeah.
Yeah, you could
or
say
these
that.
guys are all just bizarre. But it's something. All right, so there it is, the Defenders. Next issue, Michael, is my pick.
Okay, what is it?
We're going to go back to 1972.
Ooh.
The Cat, issue 1.
Oh, really?
The Cat. I love cats. So we're going to go Cat, issue 1. And sometimes it's referred to Beware the Claws of the Cat.
Okay.
And
Cat number 1.
We mentioned this in the past, but Marvel wanted it to get some female-led books, some heroine books.
Sure.
So it eventually led them to creating Miss Marvel, but at first they had like 4 solo titles, and the Cat was one of them. And like Shauna the She-Devil was one, and what were the other ones? Shoot, I can't remember.
Oh, not Black Widow.
We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about this, 1972, the Cat actually had an all-female creative team. Linda Fight is the writer.
Wow.
And Marie Severin is the artist.
Really? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll talk about them next week. We've never discussed either of them. So.
Wow, yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, maybe that episode will be longer than this one, eh?
Yeah, I would imagine.
We'll see. All right. So as we informed you yesterday, if you've been looking for us on iTunes, you're not going to find us because iTunes doesn't exist. But we are on Apple Podcasts. We are also on Stitcher and Spotify, all under Comic Book Syndicate. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and... Oh, I mentioned Facebook? Well, you won't see me on there for the next 24 hours because I called Axl Rose talented white trash and now I'm banned. But anyway, you can still find the podcast. So...
It's so weird that you attack Axl Rose and call him white trash. Yeah, you admit he's talented.
Yeah,
you think
exactly.
Untalented white trash, you think would be what you were going for.
You're
but
right.
No,
Yeah.
he is talented, but he's white trash. So
you think it'd balance itself out, but whatever. Okay, fine. So yeah.
Michael.
So until next Tuesday, disperse.